Hailing frequencies open and welcome aboard Treks and Tangents. I'm your co-host Brian.
And I'm your co-host Jaci. I'm a Star Trek newbie who treks off on tangents.
And I'm your Star Trek expert who is here to get the tangents back on track. Each episode we watch and talk about a different Star Trek episode, and this week we watched
Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 3, Where No Man Has Gone Before.
And here we are again, Episode 3, technically the fourth episode of our podcast, since The Cage, Episode 0, was the first episode of our podcast, which is infuriating as I'm trying to keep all of the numbers and publication titles in check.
I keep making it a 4.
At the start of each episode, we like to revisit our turbo lift tease or elevator pitch from last week. That's where we gave Jaci the title of this week's episode, and Jaci gave her best guess as to what the plot of the episode would be with no other information. And Jaci's guess, I quote, "Well, the moon, hello? No, I'm kidding. Well, the title alone says they are going to head off into some place, or maybe it's going to be like an Amazonian woman conference, and the men have to go tippy-toe to save someone." Jaci, how close were you this week?
Dun, dun.
Yeah, I don't think you... They went someplace, I'll give you that.
And there is a woman.
There is a woman, but yeah, I think you missed the mark this week.
Not everyone's perfect.
No, and if you were perfect every week, it wouldn't be entertaining. But what did you think of this week's episode, Jaci?
I really liked it, actually, considering last week's bomb of an episode.
Yeah? What did you like about it?
I liked again, I have this weird concept that I am enjoying plain old arts and crafts is a bad phrase, but like the original imagination of set creators or art people and I loved the music. As a musician, this was my most favorite so far.
Yeah, definitely this is different from last week. They actually go somewhere. The entirety of the episode does not take place on the Enterprise. A lot of it does, but they have different sets. They have some very cool special effects. They do some great work with some costume work. I really enjoyed the episode as well. It's a good episode. This is one of my better episodes for the season.
Do they change? You know how like in current television, it seems that there's always like a new director or a new person every week behind the scenes doing things? Or in Star Trek, is it this like it's Dave from clothing department is making the same costumes, just adding or subtracting sleeves, colors, glitter?
You would definitely ask the expert that. Definitely, it's going to be different directors and different writers for each episode. It's not a consistent director. It's not the same writer each and every time. Definitely, it's going to be some same people in some of the roles behind the scenes, costuming, lighting, camera work, and editors and so forth. But directors, writers, they do change from episode to episode.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you liked the episode?
Oh yeah, last week sucked, but this week I enjoyed it.
Well, without further ado, Jaci, why don't you walk us through the episode?
So of course we got my captain starting out with his captain's log, and I still have yet to figure out how exactly he marks time. But it's captain's log, stardate 1312.4.
Yeah, I will definitely go out on a limb here without full knowledge and without a complete understanding of how the star dates work in the original series. I will say that there's probably no rhyme or reason. Definitely the star date for this episode is not going to fit with any sort of logical pattern.
And I noticed that they have the same format for other things and that I'll talk about in the future. So I think at least the congruency is there, Everything's the same.
Yeah, there's no consistency with the star dates at this point.
So back to his log. He says the impossible has happened. The SS Valiant, which was lost some 200 years ago, they have no idea where it went. They finally found distress signals, but I mean, how? And did they actually go outside the galaxy borders? What happened? Why are we receiving them now? So then we pop into our rec room, and Spock and Kirk are playing their fabulous 3D chess game. They have new pieces now.
Yes, they've somehow
There
recovered.
are no more butt plugs.
It is a different set of chess pieces than last week. They didn't get replacements, they just replaced the whole set for this episode.
And Kirk is like talking to himself about like why the bridge hasn't called back about why they have the distress calls. And if he has to go find out himself, he will. But Spock is like, just keep playing, dude. And he's like, because your next move is checkmate for myself.
And I'll point out for consistency, one of many inconsistencies, I'm sure that'll get brought up during the episode. Spock is not wearing the traditional science blue uniform. He's wearing a gold or beige color uniform, which would be consistent with command uniforms. One of the inconsistencies that's going to pop up during this episode. We'll cover the reasoning behind the inconsistencies at the very end during our fun facts or triple tidbits for the episode, but we'll point them out along the way as we come to them.
And I still have no idea what really the colors mean, so that's probably why I didn't catch it. I just thought, okay, they're wearing the same color.
Yeah.
And so when Spock is boasting about how he's checkmating, Kirk's like, that's so irritating. And Spock just says, that's just a human emotion. Like, you're fine. But, oh well. And then finally, the transport room is like, oh, it's my man, Kelso. Almost called him Melso. But Kelso, and he said that someone is coming, and the person, vessel, whatever it is less than
a meter.
Yes, a meter. I'm like, what is my other measurement? So, shouldn't it be that big so we could bring it on, right? And Kirk's like, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, they're chasing the distress signal. That's why Kirk is so anxious, and he's less focused on the chess game and more waiting for news or an update to this distress signal. They're chasing down the source of the distress signal. They're, I think, anticipating running into...
Like a human?
I think they're anticipating running into the SS Valiant, and they're not expecting this device that they run into.
Yes, because we're back in the transport. Well, we haven't gone back, but in the transport room, this old transmitter arrives. And it reminds me of a wood-burning stove. And I was like, oh, how cute.
It wouldn't surprise me if it was a wood-burning stove.
Oh, that makes sense. But supposedly this transmitter was ejected when our poor Valiant became debris. And that's how it has been floating around and finally found its way to the Enterprise.
Yeah, Kirk describes the device as basically a black box from an airplane, and it's designed to be jettisoned or ejected from a starship when the starship runs into distress to preserve the records of the ship so others can learn what went wrong.
And then my wood-burning stove black box starts to transmit and beeping, and that is when Kirk is alarmed and alerts everybody else in the ship itself and turns on the alarms himself, and they all race to the turbo lift.
And this would be the first time that I believe in the series that we get a red alert sent throughout the ship, which is funny because it's such an iconic thing that happens over and over throughout Star Trek. But here we are in episode 3 and they're just getting to it. Also would like to point out as a spoiler, the probe starting to transmit serves no purpose to the rest of the episode. Nothing ever comes of this thing transmitting, causing all this panic and for calling for red alert. And it shouldn't be a huge surprise to the Enterprise that this emergency probe is transmitting. that's literally the signal source that they were tracking that brought them to this. So again, no reason, no understanding of why, as far as the viewers, why this thing transmitting is such a problem. But again, just a little inconsistency.
Well, it's so we can see all those long strides they take over to the turbo lift that I learned the proper phrase for an elevator.
Yes, I guess this is reminiscent of the pilot episode of the Next Generation encounter at Farpoint, where we get the extremely long, drawn out sequence of watching the Enterprise separate into its two sections. But it's just a weird reason for this episode in this series to introduce this red alert and get this brief sequence. But I digress.
Well, there's a lot of things that they don't explain overall that I've learned in the last 3 episodes.
Right.
So,
And then we get the opening credits.
that is so short.
Yeah.
It's like boop, 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 hi.
Yeah. Again, an inconsistency we'll address.
So we're over to our turbo lift, and Spock and Kirk are going down, but then our commander Mitchell leaps in. He's like, "You guys can't go down without me."
Point of order, they're going up.
Oh, see, I don't even know the whole ship thing.
Yeah. Technically, the bridge is at the very top of the saucer section, so no matter what deck the transporter room is on, they would have to go up the turbo lift to get to the bridge.
Oh, that makes sense. So Spock mentions that they're going to through this emergency, but Spock's like, "We were playing chess, and logically, I would have won because he would have played rook next."
Right. This is also the scene where we're introduced to Mr. Mitchell, who is the navigator of the Enterprise. He would be called the ensign in other episodes, but he doesn't have the rank of ensign.
Because they call him commander.
Yeah, but his job is pilot.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And then they get onto the bridge, though, and then Mitchell's like tapping the shoulder of my man Kelso and moves him over and sits in the seat.
Yeah.
And he's explaining basically that Kelso that they received this destroyed recorder, and Spock is working on how to read its transmission, but he can't the first try. But then he's like, "I'll just download the black box part itself."
Yeah, there's a weird inconsistency where Spock talks about he's trying to extract the data from the backup tapes, and the tapes are destroyed, so he's accessing the main database or mainframe, but then he refers back to the tapes that are destroyed. It's this also, in the same scene, we get this awkward ship-wide announcement that Kirk makes to the rest of the ship with the very cheesy echo sound effect as he's addressing the rest of the ship. His yeoman is also just hovering directly behind him over his shoulder, very awkwardly.
He doesn't even get her name right. He calls her Jones, and she's like, "Smith."
Right.
Okay. Nice
Just-
to meet you.
Yeomans are disposable, except Yeoman Janice.
Love her.
She's not in the episode.
I noticed. Rude.
Neither is Uhura.
Again, rude.
Again, we'll address the inconsistencies at the end of the episode.
So over that call, though, he asked for his department heads to come to the bridge. Does that not normally happen?
I would say that it's very out of place for the captain of a starship to summon all of his department heads, quote unquote, to the bridge for an impromptu meeting. I would say that it's more consistent that he would have conferences with his department heads, but this would take place in a conference room like we see later in the episode.
Okay, like a board.
Yeah, again, I think this is done for the benefit of the viewers to be introduced to some of these characters.
Right, because we have astroscience, engineering, life science, who is no longer Dr. McCoy, but his name is Dr. Piper.
Yes.
Like, where did he go? And Dr. Piper then introduces a psychiatrist, Dr. Daner, who's also a blonde woman. Like, they only have blonde ladies on here because the yeoman's blonde.
Yeah.
And side note, the women are wearing pants.
Yep.
Hello.
Uh,
And they're navy.
Yep. In an episode past, I mentioned that that episode itself was one of two times that you would see female crew members in the original series wearing traditional pants or trouser uniforms instead of skirts. This is going to be the second of two instances. Again, an inconsistency. We'll cover at the end.
Got it. And so, but she joined the trip at, she joined the ship at a colony, the Aldebaran. And I know I butchered that.
Close enough.
But so it was recent though, so they don't really know who she is. But she seems to be fantastic at her job, super smart, and her main study in the psychiatry area is ESP. And Kirk is like, "What do you know about it?" And she goes on to talk about her marks in school. He's like, "No, no, 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 no. What do you know about it?"
Well, the whole reason that we're talking about ESP is due to what Spock discovers in the backup tapes and database for the SS Valiant.
Yes, because the captain is wanting to know about it because he lost 7 of his crew members, but then one of them came back to life, it seems.
Right. So specifically, there's this weird, awkward, I call it awkward. Spock is holding an earpiece up to his ears, listening to data from the probe, from the opening to the episode. And the timeline is right. They, and by they I mean the SS Valiant that sent out the distress signal and the probe is from, reached the quote unquote edge of the galaxy, ventured right up to the edge, encountered some mysterious force, got pushed past the edge of the galaxy, and then as they came back, 7 crew members died. 1 came back, and then the captain frantically searched the computer database of his own ship for any record of ESP, and then all hell seemed to break loose, and the captain ordered the self-destruct sequence for the SS Valiant.
Which is really so sad because, like, why would you destroy your own ship unless something bad had happened?
Oh, we're going to find out.
And this is also when I noticed that Smith leaves Kirk's side and goes to Mitchell's side, and they're like holding hands.
Well, because skipping a step, everyone tries to figure out what is the next logical course of action. Kirk decides to continue to explore the mystery of the destruction of the SS Valiant. So Kirk orders that the Enterprise retrace the footsteps of the SS Valiant and to proceed beyond the edge of the galaxy, quote unquote, which is scary and completely unfounded and new territory, aka where no man has gone before, the title of the episode.
Oh, I get it now.
And yeah, Yeoman Smith,
she's comforting him.
I think Mitchell is comforting Yeoman Smith, but
and Dr. Daner she's like, "Can I study what everybody does during this emergency? Oh, and by the way, can I also study what the other crew went through?" And she gets all these weird looks from everybody.
Yeah. We should also point out that in this whole exchange, it's brought up that, as you mentioned, Dr. Daner has some expertise in studying the phenomena of ESP in humans, and she herself has some ESP powers. And by that, I don't mean anything supernatural or super defined. This isn't like she has psychic abilities. More along the lines, if she was asked to flip over one card at a time from a deck of playing cards, she would, more times than the average person, be able to guess or predict what card is being flipped over. That's a good way to describe what they believe to be is ESP in this example and universe.
So Captain Kirk wants to go back to the Valiant, not back to the ship, but what happened? So he's like, let's go on, and at warp speed 1, but Warp. I have no idea what that means. So can you explain to me what warp factor 1 means?
So, on layman's terms, and this is not established at this point in Star Trek, it's established later. Warp factors go from 0, which is it's all based on the speed of light. So,
Okay.
in Star Trek, it is possible to travel faster than the speed of light. Warp drive is FTL, or faster than light travel. Warp 1 would be 1 time faster than the speed of light. Warp 10, which is in most cases in Star Trek purely hypothetical, they can't travel 10 times faster than the speed of light. But that's about the fastest you'll hear referenced on this scale. So, again, it's not established in this episode. They're probably not referencing we're going to travel 1 times the speed of light or the speed of light, but that's essentially what they're doing. And it's super underwhelming because the order's warp factor 1. They punch it, and all you see out the view screen is a little bit of movement of the stars. It is certainly not what we see in the previous episode. I think it was the Cage where we got the super psychedelic trip where they
Yeah.
went faster than light, quote unquote.
Okay, so measurement of speed, knots, miles, etc.
Yeah.
Interesting. And while we're looking outside, we have a pink line popping up. And I'm presuming that's the galaxy edge.
No, I think it's the
Oh, force field.
yeah, it's the force field that they encounter. It's not the edge of the galaxy.
So it's like a force field to protect them to stay inside where they are or from going outside?
No, it's a mysterious force field that they don't ever explain what it is. We never revisit it. We
Oh.
don't ever talk about it in this episode again. Based on what happens and other ideas, it's been theorized that the force field itself is some kind of manifestation of this is going way far into Star Trek. Manifestation of the Q entity, either their reality or perhaps what a dead Q manifests when they die. But that's a little weird because in theory the Q never die. I think it is some kind of manifestation of the Q based on what happens to Mitchell here shortly, but that's just me. I don't necessarily think it's a dead Q, or if it is an unrecorded instance of when the Q dies.
And we do notice when they're showing the ship in the galaxy that there's a pink line around the planet that they go to, Delta Vega.
Yeah,
So that was interesting.
I think that's an artistic decision. I don't think that has anything to do with this force field. I think it's just artistic choice. I do really enjoy the exterior shot of the Enterprise that we get as it ventures into the force field, or the Enterprise transitioning and flying into this giant purple force.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool shot for television back in the mid 60s. I thought that was just awesome.
Me too. Almost as good as the music. And so the Kirk doesn't really know what to do. So he's like, turn on everything, the deflectors and the sensors. Let's just power through it. And then Spock is confused, it seems, because nothing is reading, but something is happening to the ship.
Yes.
They can't tell what is happening. All those special things that they have to tell them, in a perfect world, but everything should, quote unquote, be fine.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
They're visually flying into something that exists, but they get no sensor readings. There's no mass, there's no quote unquote gravity, no magnetic field, no radiation readings, but something is there. And something absolutely starts to go haywire on the ship.
Because all the panels are exploding. Mitchell is thrown out of his chair.
He gets zapped.
Yes. And Dr. Daner even is zapped a bit and falls. I didn't catch her zap, but she falls.
I think it's less of a zap to Daner and a visually less intense.
Which is why I missed it.
It's visually less of an intense zap to Dr. Daner than it is to Mitchell, for sure. Mitchell is thrown out of his chair. He's knocked around hard. Daner has just kind of a fainting episode.
Right. And Kirk's like, I'll save the day and go to Mitchell's chair. And Spock just pushes him out of the way because he doesn't want the same thing to happen, I'm presuming.
Yeah.
And so he continues, manning the fort, I guess, the chair. And finally, when they're through, sadly, 9 people have died.
Yeah. Kind of. First, they don't make it through the force field. They turn around and they pull themselves back out of the force field, back into the galaxy. Because if they went through the force field, they would have to return back through the force field.
Oh, I get it.
So,
See, I don't know these things. I'm so glad I have you.
that's the point of the podcast. But also, yeah, kind of a flippant decision of the captain to just power through a situation that obviously caused something bad to happen to the SS Valiant. Little weird that Kirk would be like, fuck it, let's try it.
Well,
And-
200 years later, he assumes he has better technology.
Sure. Or he's just got a terrible ego, which makes sense for Shatner, but that's beside the point. But yeah, 9 are dead from his flippant decision.
I mean, it could have been 11, but thankfully Mitchell and Dr. Daner are okay. But Mitchell has glassy marble eyes now.
Yeah, very metallic, white, glowing eyes.
And he did have marks on his forehead, but in the next scene, they're gone. So I'm presuming that's where he hit his head. Poor guy. And then we have an amendment or an addition to our captain's log, and it's 1312.9. And Kirk talks about the ship condition on impulse engines only. The power is out. He can't warp. They used to be days away from any kind of Earth base. I'm presuming that's like a little station that they can go to.
Yeah.
But now they're years away.
Yeah. He says years. It would be closer to tens of thousands of years because, again, the Enterprise has now lost the ability to travel faster than light. So picture how far things are in space. If you can't travel faster than light, you're stuck with just traveling the speed of light, and you're trying to make it back across a galaxy. This is now something that will take years. They're
walking.
Yeah, they don't have a choice. They're going to have to fix the engines. Otherwise, none of them will see civilization again in their lifetime or the lifetime of several generations.
That's really scary. But they are on the bridge again. And Kirk and Spock are researching Dr. Daner. Like, she's so fantastic. But why is she fantastic? And that's when we learn about all those high scores. We learn that her parents had ESP. Like, she's pretty smart. But then they scooch over to Commander Mitchell, and his scores are even higher. His parents go back 6 generations of ESP.
Yeah. And
it's wild.
And the specific notes that they pull up show that Daner has quote unquote above average ESP ratings and skills, but Mitchell's ratings are
exceptional,
described as exceptional, to give the implication that Mitchell has more quote unquote ESP levels than Dr. Daner.
And it's like he keeps it to himself, or maybe we never really know. Well, before, everything happens.
I think it's at this point just kind of a background thing that is tested for. Again, the level of ESP up until this point is just like the ability to correctly guess or predict what card is going to be flipped over in a deck of cards more often than the average person. But
right, like likely and unlikely.
Correct. It gives someone the ability to give better predictions on something extremely mundane. This would not be a talent or a skill that would necessarily provide any benefit or any measurable talent.
Up until now, it's like, wow, you're a blonde person. Okay.
Yeah, and you happen to be able to guess the card being flipped over correctly 20 times in a deck of cards versus the average person who would do 5 or 10.
Well, that makes sense. Dr. Daner does return to the bridge after she's learned that she's been at the autopsy, and she notates or tells them that those that died all have ESP abilities, and that part of the brain has been burned out.
Yes.
And she does say that both she and Mitchell are feeling better, but his eyes are still that glassy shade.
Right.
This is also when Spock explains that the other captain was searching on espers, and Dr. Danner gets upset. Like, it's not harmful. It's just something to, again, talk about cards.
Yeah.
Nothing independent, nothing to, it's just a thing.
Yeah. Specifically, pointing out espers is what appears to be a term that they're going to use to describe people with elevated ESP talents. Talents is the wrong word. I keep using the word talents. ESP ratings.
And they almost make it like a bad thing now because they're like, why did it catch panels on fire? Why are we unable to fly away? Like, we need answers to these questions.
Yeah. Dr. Daner is definitely very defensive against any negative opinions towards someone with an elevated ESP rating or being an esper.
She probably takes it personal.
She is an esper by definition.
Yeah. We're back at the sick bay because we want to check on Mitchell, see how he's doing. And Kirk, of course, goes in to check on his friend, and Mitchell already knows it's him because he doesn't even look up. He's like, "What's up, Kirk?" And like, "How are you doing? Your eyes look kind of normal, but they're still super shiny." And then I was like, "They look like marbles to me," but okay.
Yeah, I thought in this scene, in the rewatch, I had to remind myself, it seemed almost that Mitchell had gone blind, especially because we just had the interaction with him on the bridge and he seemed like he didn't see anything. He's definitely not looking up when Kirk enters, but then he does turn to look at Kirk, and the rest of the episode, it's very clear that he's not blind. I'll burn a fun fact. Part of the reason why some of the way that the actor who plays Mitchell holds his head has to do with the contact lenses that he's wearing for that eye effect. He had a hard time seeing through the contact lenses. He had to lower his head and kind of look out the top of his eyes to be able to see anything. So a lot of the times as you're watching the episode, he's lowering his head and he's looking out the top of his eyes like someone who's trying to look over the top of their glasses. That's him trying to look past the contacts.
And near the end, he's kind of looking up to look down.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was just part of him being his character.
It played off very well.
Yeah, he did a great job. And I mean, and at the beginning, he was nice and knew that Kirk was the captain. But during this time, I can see a change though, because he jokes about when they were in the academy, Kirk was a teacher, I'm presuming.
Yes, Kirk had a time at the academy where he was an instructor. I think it was less of an instructor and more of Kirk attending graduate programs and courses at the academy while teaching undergraduate courses. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay, because he's like joking about manipulating him and throwing this lady at him. And Kirk's like, "Dude, I was about to marry her." And Mitchell just starts laughing.
Yeah, this is fleshed out in other stories of Star Trek and novels and comic books, but Mitchell, in order to get ahead in Kirk's class that he was teaching, found a lab technician and kind of played wingman without Kirk knowing and kind of tried to set the two of them up as a way, I guess, to distract Kirk from performing his teaching duties and making it easier to pass his class.
Yeah. And he even talks about he better be good to him, but half of that is this mean sounding echo voice, and he's turns a boyish grin and ends it with to him, haha, just playing with you.
Yeah.
And then after Kirk leaves, though, we see his monitor beeping faster, and he's just scrolling through that book he was reading, like super, super fast. And on the bridge, Spock and Kirk seems to be overseeing, like spying.
Somehow they're able to observe him in sickbay from some kind of camera system.
Yeah, and they're like, "Look at all this that's happening." And of course, Mitchell we can tell that Mitchell has this ability, and he looks right into the screen as he's doing everything, and it's super creepy.
Yeah, as if he knows he's being observed.
Then we're back at the sick bay, and Dr. Piper finally pops in to check on him, and he's, moving his levers around on that machine with that reads how he's doing our vitals.
No. Doctor is moving his lovers around the sick bay. He's got many lovers around the sick bay.
Well, he is a nice man. And then he's like, "Well, I'm glad you're doing well." And so he leaves. And then Dr. Diener walks in to make sure everything is peachy. And Mitchell, he's like, "Look what I can do," and starts literally moving his own vital machine up and down.
He's specifically changing he's not manipulating the system, the monitor. He's changing his own vitals to become
Oh,
elevated, and then he uses the same technique to completely flatline his vitals and quote unquote kill himself before he rouses himself.
yeah. She's like, "You were dead for 22 seconds."
Right.
And then they discuss like his retention as she tests him. Like, this is tell me what happens on page 222. And he's like, it was written by this tabloid on Planet in 1996. And he finds it amusing that she chose a love sonnet. Like, why does that have anything to do with it? It's kind of harassment.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird little scene where Mitchell pulls Denner close after she tests his reading with this love sonnet that she chose at random. It's kind of hard to read Denner in her response to this. Mitchell is definitely trying to come on to Denner, and she's not really pulling away. She's kind of seems to be scared, but not really. Again, it's hard to read.
I think this is when he finds out that she too will
As
have glassy eyes soon.
as we learn, yes, that could be.
So they're like, canoodling. But Kelso interrupts him on the coffee break, trying to, check on his friend. And dude, Mitchell is mean to him. He's like, "Why don't you have something to fix?" And sends him out.
Yeah, Mitchell warns his friend that there's a problem with the ship's system and that he needs to go check it. And his friend doesn't believe him,
He's kind of annoyed. Like, that's my part.
but Mitchell is insistent, so his friend backs down, says he'll check it, and he leaves. And Dr. Denner asks Mitchell, "How did you know that fact about the ship?" And Mitchell just says that, well, my friend observed that system earlier having a problem but didn't consciously recognize the problem, but I saw from his memory.
And back on the bridge, or I'm sorry, not in the bridge, they're actually in a meeting. And Kelso is surprised. Wow, he actually knew this. Good thing I fixed it because we won't blow up now. But it's a board meeting of all the heads that we met earlier. And they're talking about Mitchell and what to do about him because it's nothing good is really happening. I mean, Spock and Kirk are discussing after they send everyone away. They're discussing options because Mitchell is just becoming worse. It was affected by the electricity.
From the force field earlier.
Yes. And it's either one, we go to the Delta Vega planet as planned because we have to get some lithium batteries and fix up the Enterprise.
Yep, they need some Duracells.
And hopefully everything fits nicely, and then they'll just leave him. But Kirk doesn't want to leave his friend. Like, that's his friend. And Spock has to explain he's no longer a human. Like, it's only going to get worse, as you can see. Like, he was talking about in only a few moments there's going to be Mitchell playing around with all of the humans like they're mice.
Yeah, there's definitely a conversation that Mitchell is getting stronger and stronger, and there is going to reach a point where they can't do anything about the problem because they won't be able to overpower Mitchell. He'll be too strong. Spock even goes so far as to say if marooning him on the Delta Vega planet in this automated mining facility is too cruel of a solution, then we should just kill Mitchell now while we can.
So now we've arrived at the planet and it's time to start our plan. And they're heading to the sick bay to grab Mitchell. And he's like, hmm, I'm thirsty. And you see him fill up this paper cup he's in bed still, from water, and it floats along, and he's drinking his water as the men walk in.
Yes, the crew, now all see that Mitchell has expanded his powers and he now has telekinetic powers to move objects with his mind.
Mitchell knows something's up. He knows that Kirk is worried. He knows that Spock is like, just kill this dude and let's
He's
get this over with.
He has, or it seems he has the ability, maybe not to directly read their minds, but definitely pick up on the context and general thoughts that they're having.
Then the men start walking towards him, and Mitchell shoots them all with electricity. They come back to quote unquote life and attack him again, and Dr. Denner gives him a sedative or something. Then he's standing up again and fighting because that wasn't enough. And then our dear Dr. Piper has to give him something else, something stronger. And during all this time, he's just shouting that he's going to be a god. They're going to be squished. You can't stop me, blah, 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 blah.
Definitely revealing his inner thoughts and true emotions.
No longer our dear friend Mitchell.
No.
Then we're at the transport room. They beam down to the planet Delta Vega. As they're getting back to human form, Kirk informs with Kelso about the plan. Like, can their plan work? Kirk asks about the fail-safe plan that he's already devised with him, about the little kill switch, and they begin a new project.
Yeah, specifically Kirk asks if the mining facility can be rigged to blow as a backup failsafe to kill Mitchell. But yes, they begin the project of taking the systems from the mining facility to convert and incorporate into the Enterprise to fix their warp engines so they can get back to civilization.
But they make the mistake of saying all of this in front of, I'm saying, of faking Mitchell that he's subdued in front of this cell like room as they push him in because he can hear everything.
Yeah, it's a little weird to me that this completely automated facility that has no human inhabitants, this is literally just a way station for ships to stop by, refuel, pick up the cargo of the fruits of the mining facility, and take it back to civilization. Why is there a jail cell?
I didn't know it was a jail cell until Mitchell tries to come out and he electrocutes himself with like a force field. I was
Yeah.
like, whoa.
I don't know what other purpose this room has. It has a bed, it has a mirror and a sink, and that's about it. It is literally a prison cell on what is supposed to be a facility in a planet with no humans. It shouldn't be there.
And because he hits the force field, it drains his whatever power he has, and his eyes go back to quote unquote normal.
Very briefly.
Kirk's so excited. And then, yes, back to glassy eyed he goes, and dreams are crushed.
Yes.
But thankfully, back on the bridge of the Enterprise, the new panels from the planet are fitting like a glove, quote unquote, and everyone is happy.
And Scotty reports that from the Enterprise down to the away team on the planet, specifically to Kirk. They also all point out Scotty asks if Spock received the laser rifle that he requested, and Kirk originally says no, and then Spock walks around the corner holding this giant laser rifle, and Kirk goes, wait, I guess he did, because, again, Spock does not trust Mitchell. Spock, I believe, would have been perfectly happy and wanted to kill Mitchell on the Enterprise and not deal with any other plan.
Agreed, because he's logical, not emotional.
Correct.
So they're back at his cell, and Dr. Denham is just staring at him. And she's like, this has been like for hours. And Kirk tells Spock to just gather Dr. Piper and Kelso in the control room, and let's get ready to get out of here. Like, we have a plan set. Let's go. Dr. Dinner says she's going to stay with Mitchell. She doesn't care what everybody else is doing. In the planet control room, Kelso is saying, I'll shoot back to go normal. All is great. Let's go back going. And while he's talking, though, he doesn't realize that there is an electrical cord rising up behind him and get ready to strangle him, and he is killed.
He is choked out, and we learn in another scene or two that he is dead. And then we jump back to Dr. Denner and Kirk and Spock, and they're all arguing because, as you mentioned, Denner wants to stay with Mitchell. And in and amongst all of that fighting, Mitchell's attention comes back to the argument after killing the other crewman with the wire. And Mitchell says, "It's all over. You should have killed me while you had the chance." And he zaps Kirk and Spock unconscious.
And Dr. Denner and he almost walk hand in hand into his own cell and look at each other in the mirror, look at themselves in the mirror. And that's when we see Dr. Denner's eyes turn into that marble glassy shape color. Dr. Piper finally comes down and he finds that Kirk and Spock are knocked out unconscious. He gives the pill to Kirk, and Kirk's like, "Don't give Spock this pill until I'm gone," as he takes the phaser from him.
Yeah.
What is this pill?
I have no idea. It's the first time I've seen anyone eat a smelling salt. I have no idea what Doctor gives Kirk in this moment, but
At least it wasn't a giant piece of green candy.
it probably was candy at this point. But yeah, Kirk briefly outlines the plan that he's going to go after Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Denner, because at this point they were unconscious. They didn't see that Dr. Denner had transformed to be like Mitchell.
Oh, so she's a hostage.
Yes. And so, but they know that she's sympathetic toward Mitchell. She wanted to stay. So
True.
not entirely convinced that she's been kidnapped, just going along with him. Anyways, Kirk says he's going to go after them. He tells the doctor, Piper, "Go ahead and bring Spock around after I leave. You all get back to the Enterprise. If you don't hear from me in 12 hours, rush back to civilization with the fixed ship, come back, and then bombard this planet with radiation so that Mitchell cannot cause any further harm."
Dr. Denner and Gary are walking outside of his cell, outside of the buildings. They're out in the open. And Dr. Denner's like, "No one can live here." And Gary's like, "Haha."
Specifically for clarification, Gary is Mitchell.
My apologies. Yes, Mitchell. And he, thinks he's a god. And he creates this beautiful oasis. And it really is gorgeous. And she's like, "Well, what about food?" And I think it's ironic that he makes an apple tree.
They're alien apples, but he calls them an apple of some variety.
And he did like it from that planet that he went, but I, say apple because it's, Adam and Eve. They're all by themselves on this planet, all alone. And then so he's like, "I also can see a foolish man wandering around." And he calls that to Kirk.
Yeah, he senses Kirk as Kirk is trying to catch up to them.
And Mitchell sends Dr. Denner out to talk to Kirk so that she could see that he, as well as other humans, are lower life forms. They're unneeded. Like, why need them? So let's get rid of them. And Kirk is like, no. You still have humanity in you. So it's frail, beautiful parts of it, parts that we also want to keep hidden. So don't, fight it. Be a human for a little bit longer.
Well, he's trying to point out to Dr. Denner that while Mitchell has all of these powers and is proclaiming himself as a god, he still is in a human body. And so Mitchell is vulnerable to all the frailties of being human. Physically, he is weak, and he has primal instincts that are obviously showing themselves in his interactions with others. And so he's trying to reason with Denner to say he's not really a god. He's not perfect. He is an imperfect being that has been granted all of these powers, and he is unpredictable. You don't know what he's going to do next. You don't know that he's going to share his god throne with you. He says that you're equal until it fits his own agenda to get rid of you.
I'm glad you got all of that because I didn't.
That's why I'm here.
And so, of course, Mitchell arrives. He's like, of course, can't send this chick to do a man's job, God's job. and he stands there, but Kirk tries to shoot him with his phaser gun, and literally no effect. But Mitchell's like, well, it was nice knowing you. Now it's time for you to die. But first, you have to pray to me as your god.
Right. Specifically in this order of sequence, he uses his powers. Mitchell, starts to shake loose this boulder, implying that he's going to crush Kirk with this boulder. But then he starts toying with Kirk and playing with Kirk. He uses his abilities and powers to make an open grave appear next to them.
Fancy headstone.
He creates the headstone that has Kirk's name. He then forcibly makes Kirk kneel in front of him to pray as if he is a god, all of which is the tipping point for Dr. Denner to show that all of the things Kirk has been saying, even up to this point, as he's being forced to pray, Kirk is begging with Dr. Denner, look, this is what he is. He is not good. He needs to be stopped.
And there's only going to be jealousy, and only one god can become of it. And so Dr. Denner uses her own powers and shoots Mitchell, which does make him less powerful, and he and Kirk are fighting now.
Specifically, also, as Dr. Denner uses her abilities to attack Mitchell, Mitchell fights back and uses his abilities to attack Dr. Denner.
Yes.
And they have a back and forth. That is what drains Mitchell, I believe, is fighting off Denner's attack.
Oh, like in the force field.
Yes.
And she just stays laid on the ground as the boys are fighting. And then finally, Kirk gets him, and he uses that grave of his, and he gets him on the ground inside the grave and shoots, because that's when we use our human mind, and he shoots those rocks that he was toying with, Mitchell, and kills Mitchell with the rock and like lays it over. Again, I want to go to that biblical reference. There's like a giant tomb coverage, a giant rock.
Capstone.
Yeah. Burying his friend / God, Mitchell.
Yep. And kills Mitchell.
Yes, kills Mitchell. And then that's when he runs over to Dr. Denner. Maybe he could save her, but no, her powers are gone and she succumbs to her injuries. And she does say that he will never know how close it was to becoming a god. Like, even she was enticed.
Yeah.
Finally, back on the Enterprise, Kirk does mention that we're adding 2 more casualties, both Dr. Denner and Commander Mitchell, and that they died during duty. He didn't want them to be dead disgraced because it wasn't their fault.
Right.
And then Spock does admit that he did have, he was developing, nice feelings for Mitchell.
I don't know that they were nice feelings. Spock expresses that he has empathy for Mitchell's situation.
And then there is hope for Spock after all.
According to Kirk. And roll credits. So, Jackie, what did you think about Season 1, Episode 3, Where No Man Has Gone Before?
I liked it much better than Episode 2, of course. And I liked how it made you think. And obviously, as a newbie, a new person, a layman, someone who doesn't know anything, I had to learn about what I was watching. But it makes me want to. I'm looking forward to the next episode.
Yeah, I like this episode a lot. I really like the thought experiment, diving into the Star Trek lore. This idea of what is the actual cause for Mitchell and Dr. Denner's transformation, and the transformation of supposedly the crew member on the SS Valiant. Again, I mentioned that it might be the spirit of a Q entering Mitchell or Dr. Denner.
Is a Q an alien?
A Q is an alien that we will learn about in The Next Generation.
Okay.
He's one of my favorite characters. He's a favorite character for a lot of people. He's one of the more interesting characters in all of Star Trek, I believe. And he's recurring and he has lots of cameos, and he's just an all-around fun character. But again, Q can't die. None of the Q are supposed to be able to die. That's actually a plot line of one of the episodes later on in Star Trek, is what happens when Q dies, because they are not supposed to die.
Well, they become a pink force field.
In theory, I guess it's on, according to, if you try to force this story into the rest of Star Trek, this takes place at the edge of the galaxy. So this could very well be an undocumented Q, or a Q
The
that's
birth.
and is split off from the Q continuum and is dead, and their death creates this force field anomaly that infects people with high ESP ratings that come in contact with it. Huge stretch. I like the idea. And overall, this is just a fun episode. It's got some great effects. It's got a lot of fun music, as Jackie mentioned.
Well, during the fight scene alone, I mean, the timpani during the kicks, yeah.
And it does have that fight scene. So I really like the episode. But I do have some tribble tidbits or fun facts for the episode. September 22nd, 1966 was the original air date for Where No Man Has Gone Before. I mentioned earlier the effect of Mitchell and Dr. Denner's eyes was achieved by contact lenses. Specifically, they took tinfoil and they sandwiched it in between two contact lenses
Those poor people.
that covered the entire eye. They were made by a licensed optician that created it. And the associate producer that ordered them, in conjunction with the optician, they both extensively tested them over periods of time, and it was deemed safe by a doctor to wear for short periods of time. Certainly not day-to-day use, not for multiple hours. So it was overseen by a licensed physician for the safety of the actors.
Oh, so these are like the beginning of today's crazy eye contacts.
Yeah. So to address all of the inconsistencies that we mentioned throughout the episode, this in fact is one of 3 secondary pilots that were submitted as ideas to the network to try to get a second chance for Star Trek. And this is the pilot episode that the network chose to fund, to reshoot, to give Star Trek a second chance.
Well, you could tell.
So this was actually the second pilot that was filmed. It filmed a significant time before it aired on television. Again, they filmed the pilot, they brought the pilot back to the network had to review it, they had to approve it, and then order additional episodes to go into full production. So it was filmed a full year before it aired on television. So this is technically the first Star Trek episode, even though it aired out of order. That's why there's the inconsistencies. They filmed the pilot, the television series was picked up by the network, then they went back and started filming the other episodes and creating those consistencies and redoing some of the uniforms. But that is why it is so inconsistent with so many things.
This show was definitely a labor of love for whoever created it. I mean,
Gene Roddenberry.
like, what an amazing force of a human he was.
Right.
Wow.
We mentioned in our very first episode of this podcast, when we covered the failed pilot, episode 0, The Cage, that the set for the bridge of the Enterprise was infested with pigeons. This time, when they filmed this pilot episode, it was infested with wasp nests in the rafters of the set. William Shatner and Sally Kellerman, who played Dr. Denner, were both stung during production. So they had to take a couple breaks in filming to allow those wasp stings to heal. There's a couple parts where they only film part or a side of William Shatner's face to kind of try to obscure some of his wasp stings. The headstone that Mitchell creates at the head of the grave at the end of the episode for Kirk initially showed the middle initial for Kirk as R. Later in Star Trek, this would change to the letter T. His official name, middle name, is Tiberius. Again, The pilot episode, it's another inconsistency that changed when the series was picked up. The phaser rifle that we see requested by Spock and later used by Captain Kirk later sold at auction for $615,000. This episode boasts a body count of 12. You have the 9 crew members that died when they first go into the force field. You have the crewman that is choked to death by the power cable on the planet.
Rip Kelso.
And then you have Mitchell and Dr. Denner. So this is the highest body count so far in Star Trek for Enterprise crew members. And finally, in the 1960s, ESP was actually seriously believed by many to be a true phenomena and an actual thing that people possessed. Of course, studies since have proved, or at least studies have failed to produce any serious evidence that this is actually a phenomenon that can take place. And those are your Tribble tidbits.
Interesting.
And to round out the episode this week, we will give this episode our ranking. We rank each episode based on our own unique system, where we have our fictitious starship that represents this season of Star Trek, and each episode gets assigned a literal rank that represents a member of the crew. A higher ranked episode means that not only we found it more entertaining and we liked it, but it's more of an important member of our starship for the season. A lower ranked episode means we didn't like the episode so much, but also it's a more disposable episode for our starship. We have 5 ranks: Captain, Commander, Lieutenant Commander, Lieutenant, and Lieutenant Junior grade, representing roughly a scale of 1 to 10. We also have a top rank of Admiral, which is a 10 plus out of 10, the perfect episode, a keystone episode. And then we have our fun rank of Ensign, which is 0 out of 10. It is a terrible
like Charlie X.
Speaking of which, last week's episode, Charlie X, Jaci gave that a ranking of Ensign, which is 0 out of 10. I gave Charlie X a rank of Lieutenant Junior grade, which would be like a 2 or 3 out of 10. Jaci, what ranking would you give this week's episode where no man has gone before?
I am going with the good old Lieutenant Commander.
Lieutenant Commander, which is, I would say, about middle of the road, slightly above middle of the road. We only are going to allow 10 total episodes to hold the rank of Lieutenant Commander as an officer. So that would be about a 6 to 7 out of 10. Why do you give it that ranking?
Well, like I said, I love the music. You told me about the poor tinfoil people eyes, so yes. But I learned a lot. There was a lot of interaction. We were, instead of jumping around from scene to scene, it was like a hop. And I was able to keep up with what I was watching. But only with a little bit of help did I need to understand more.
And what held this episode back for you? Why not a higher ranking?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, also probably not a higher ranking, also because, again, even though I got to learn things, if this was supposed to be the pilot now that you told us, I would have had no idea, and I probably would not want to watch the next episode.
Fair enough. Last week, I gave Charlie X a Lieutenant Junior grade, or a 2 or 3 out of 10. I'm going to go ahead and give this episode a Lieutenant Commander rating as well, just like Jaci. I really enjoyed this as a pilot episode. I think they really found their stride in filming this pilot episode. It had a compelling storyline. The pacing was excellent. Great special effects. Fantastic moment seeing the Enterprise fly into the force field. That's probably one of the most beautiful scenes in the early Star Trek episodes, in my opinion.
So much color.
So much color. What's holding it back for me is some plot hole points. Again, they beam the distress beacon from the SS Valiant onto the ship, and it starts transmitting, and they all freak out. But again, there's no reason for them to freak out. There's also a question of, if Mitchell has all of these powers, why would the possibility of marooning him on that planet be an absolute solution to keep him on the planet? His power is going to continue to grow and grow and grow. wouldn't it be believable that he somehow would create enough power to get himself off the planet? It's also mentioned by Kirk that there are these cargo ships that stop at Delta Vega to refuel, pick up the fuel that the automated mining system has created. So, and they stop every 20 years or so. Again, Mitchell proves that he has enough power to create food out of nothing. He could easily survive for 20 years and hijack one of those cargo ships. And of course, the biggest plot hole point for me was never coming back to try to give any explanation to what the force field is at the edge of the galaxy that creates this whole phenomena to begin with. Is it a dead Q? Is it something else? We don't know. We never find out. So I think there was some room to expand on it. But again, I understand it's a pilot. I just think that those plot holes hold the episode back from ranking higher for me. So again, just like Jaci, Lieutenant Commander is going to be my rank, a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Looking at IMDb, as of this recording, it is 7.7 out of 10. We'll be back next week to trek through another episode, but before we go, we're going to give our turbolift tease or elevator pitch to next week's episode. I'm going to give Jaci the title of next week's episode, and Jaci, with no other information and never seeing the episode before, is going to give her brief pitch or guess to the plot.
I may have spoke too soon.
Jaci, next week's episode is entitled The Naked Time.
Time as in THYME or time?
As in what you think it is, TIME.
The naked time.
Keep in mind, we're not trying to get canceled.
I'm going to say that the naked time is literally time, like the passing of it. It's A to Z to, biological clock, naked time.
All right. And we'll see next week how close or accurate you are with your guess.
These titles are weird.
Yeah. If you want more show information, you can find and directly support our podcast on Patreon at patreon.com/treks and tangents. You can also follow us on X at treks_tangents. We're also on Instagram and Blue Sky at Treks and Tangents. Jaci, where can people find you and what you're up to?
Well, I'm very excited. I am revamping or upping my Glitter Pity Designs Instagram. I have been making dog necklaces forever, and now with this Labubu craze that I'm on, I have adjusted to make Labubu jewelry. So I'm really excited about that lately. And of course, I have my normal, just the regular old Jaboom, where I have my music, weight loss, clothes, how to dress for that size, makeup, everything. It's super fun.
And you can watch me stream a variety of video games over at twitch.tv/PiratePoundTown. On YouTube, I post video game and other pop culture random content on my main channel at Pirate Pound Town. You can also find me posting coin collecting and hobby content over at my secondary channel, Pirate Treasure Hunting, also on YouTube. I post socially on Blue Sky at Pirate Pound Town. And finally, I can be found on Instagram under Pineapple Cannibal because I am proudly banned from Instagram as Pirate Pound Town. Links to all social media mentioned can be found in the episode description. Thank you everyone for tuning into this episode. We hope you had fun like we did, and we will see you all next week.
Don't forget that phaser at home.
End transmission.